my lovely co-host, Marina Nani. Hello, Marina.
Wow, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Now is the time to grab pen and paper. And our listeners know we are in for a treat. So if it's your first time, perhaps, Jill, you'll be kind enough to tell us what we've been learning since you start teaching us. And just a little bit, a kind reminder for my notes as well. And I'm very excited about what you're going to share with us today.
Thank you, Marina. It's always a pleasure to be here. So, I think we're on about number 5 or number 6, something like that. It's been such a whirlwind, hasn't it? So what we're talking about here is really about natural health, about holistic health, and what you can do as an individual to help yourself to either prevent disease in the first place, to reverse the aging process, to stay fit and healthy and young. In a nutshell, that's what we're talking about. So in our first session, I think what I did was I shared a little bit with you about my story. And I think it's important whenever you decide that you're going to work with somebody that you understand exactly, what the trials and tribulations of that person has been and whether or not you can relate to them. So I think one of the things that would be good is to listen to that very first recording that we did, because I talk about how just a few years ago I was basically fat, sick and unhappy, and how finding natural nutrition, nutraceuticals, supplements, changing my diet and my lifestyle turned my life around, and how I was able to help that of the life of my son. And we haven't even been to that one yet. We need to include that one, Marina. We need to include how his life dramatically changed because he suffered with irritable bowel syndrome. But that first one was really about me. Then we went on to talk about the toxicity of our 21st century living and how it's very difficult for us now to maintain a healthy body with all the various toxins that we're exposed to in our food, in our environment, the stressful lives that we live in the 21st century. So that second episode is all about that 21st century toxicity. And then we went on to talk about the key things that you need to understand in terms of health, what the body needs in terms of nutrients, for example, in order to have a healthy body. And in specifically, which is my big passion, we had one whole session on heart health and how your cardiovascular system is the cause, the root of your general health, and how in very simple terms there are some very easy things you can do, straightforward things you can do that will help you to avoid disease, to prevent illness, to get yourself off that high statistic of 1 in 2 people suffering with heart disease in the Western world. I think it's so obvious that we're losing the battle against heart disease, don't you think, Marina?
Wow. Well, I felt that way before I met you. Now I know we are winning because you are on a mission to save 1 million lives each year. So this year is 1 million people. Next year is at least another 1 million people. So yes, we are making progress because of you.
Yes, thank you. Well, it certainly is my mission, and I think we talked about how it seems like an awful a high bar to set 1 million lives, but when you look at the global population and how heart disease in particular is so catastrophic for people in the Western world, then actually it's a tiny number. So it's actually quite humbling for me. But it is true that my focus as a functional nutritionist has turned towards heart disease with the arrival particularly and my access to something called the miracle molecule, which is why this series is called the miracle molecule. And this section that we talked about, I think it was series 3 maybe or 4, that's an introduction to nitric oxide and how this is so important for a happy heart, for a happy cardiovascular system, and how that this miracle, so-called miracle molecule, which was discovered and given a Nobel Prize in 1998, is the one thing that we all need to understand. It's the building block of a lot of our pharmaceutical medicines that have been developed over the last 20 years or so. But of course, we all know that our pharmaceutical medicines have massive side effects. And so this is a way for you to create the benefits of the miracle molecule, the nitric oxide that you need to keep your heart and cardiovascular system healthy, but without the side effects. And that's a real passion for me, is to help people to look at alternate remedies, alternate methods of living that healthy life. I think you're very, very keen on that holistic approach, Marina, aren't you?
Yes, because I experience myself situation where nobody could help me unless I open my mind into what is available out there. So it is a choice, and I think our listeners already know that nobody is forcing you to wait till nothing else can be done to help you. Right now is the right time to reach out and connect with Gill and see what is the best strategy for you. What is the best you could do for yourself, and say yes to yourself, because for some reason people still, I think it's comfortable thinking that when you go to the doctors, they will, find a way, they will fix you, they will make you brand new, and life will be wonderful again. And guess what? It doesn't happen that way. It's always a choice, and that's why you are coming here every single week, and you are sharing your amazing ideas and your passion with our listeners, for them to, and including myself, of course, to look into everything with an open mind, because a miracle is just an open mind away, and it is not something anyone can force you into it. It is something that you decide to embrace, and you decide to explore, and you decide to understand that it is to your advantage, is giving you an unfair advantage. Over to you, Gill.
Yes, thank you, Marina. And I think, we all have choices in our life, don't we? And it's about prioritizing very much, in the same way that we prioritize looking after our house, the upkeep of our house, or the upkeep of our car, or or of ourselves in terms of ladies going and having our hair done and our nails and so on. We tend to prioritize those things over our health very often, because we live in that kind of well, it'll be okay, because as you say, I know that there's always somebody that can fix me. But of course, realistically, if you really sit back and look at what's going on in the world, I have a GP friend, and he spends 80% of his time with 20% of his clients, because it's those people with chronic illness that are taking up most of his time as a GP. And those people with chronic illness are generally over the age of 70, and they're people that have got themselves onto the polypharmacy, as we call it. And last time we talked about, the cholesterol, for example, and how by taking statins, you're on this rocky road to having side effects and to maybe experiencing things that you have to take other drugs for. And of course, that's what drugs do. When I was nursing years and years ago, it was very, very common for me to take my drugs trolley around, and the people that were in perhaps for an operation just needed some painkillers, but the people that had chronic medical diseases, they were never just on one medication, they were always usually on a whole host of them. And that's because of the side effects of these pharmaceutical medications. So, do listen to the cholesterol one episode that we did last week, because that's just one example of, why it's so important that you take action now, that you prioritize your health now. Because, if you look at in terms of what I would do for myself on a daily basis, in terms of the extra things that I fill the gaps in my diet with, which is an antioxidant, which is what we're going to be talking about today, the heart health Pro Arginine, which is the one thing that keeps me young and vibrant, and an alkalizing drink as well called liquid chlorophyll. Those three things, they cost me about £3 a day. Now, for the majority of us, that's, I don't know, a quick lunch or a coffee in a shop, or a half a glass of wine, or whatever it is. It's not a huge amount of money. But of course, we tend to get caught up with, oh, well, there are other things that I can spend my money on. So, I do you agree with me, Marino? It's really about prioritizing and, as you say, making a decision. But understanding that it's not complicated either.
Yes, I think I don't like everything in life. How much is your heart worth to you?
Yeah.
You see, because while you have it, it's a given gift. So you don't value it, it's priceless, but you can't put a price because it's priceless. But once you start losing what you've been given at birth, hopefully in good faith, you abuse it, you never paid attention because it was yours. And you never felt the need to value yourself. And I think the way we are conditioned to prioritize what is important in life is I don't know, it's very sad. It's like, why would you pay 20 or whatever is a manicure before you think of investing £3 for your health?
Yeah.
It doesn't even make sense. I mean, everybody's so well educated those days. Everybody got access to everything. It's so much information, and yet when it comes to real life, to how we make our choices, how we prioritize, as you said, there is like no tomorrow. Everybody is invincible till one day when, like Dalai Lama said, the most interesting creature on planet Earth is the human being, because you spend everything just to realize that you are left with nothing, and then all the money you made, you try to buy back your health, but that's not possible.
Yes,
and
it's too late by then.
We are funny creatures, and it's all down to what we learn from our parents. They didn't value themselves. We are now valuing ourselves, and I can't imagine what my children would do without me. I think I'm aware I can't do that to them. It's a luxury I can't afford. I have to stay healthy and vibrant and happy and be at service to the world.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, if you listen to my story, you'll know that my mother died at 56. Now, I'm just a year away from that. And I have 3 grown-up children in their 20s. And I have absolutely no intention of leaving my children like my mother sadly left me, before my children were even born. And, when I was nursing many, many, many years ago, I had the great privilege of being with people at the end of their lives. And, nobody ever said, oh, I wished I'd had a bigger house, or I wished I'd bought fancier cars, or I wished I'd spent more money on holidays. What they wanted to know was, am I loved? Am I going to be missed? Have I left my mark in the world? Have I made a difference? And, that for me, it was a lesson I learned in my 20s. And it's always stuck with me that your health is your wealth, actually. And although we all have businesses to run, and I run a business around health, But I think this is the most valuable business that you could ever have compared to any other business in the world, because I teach people, I educate people. I can't, as you say, influence whether or not they decide to take action. I can hopefully inspire them to do that. But, it's so important that as parents particularly, or as a daughter, or as a sister, or, a granddaughter, whatever it is that you are, that you take responsibility, that you don't shuffle off this mortal coil before you really, really need to, because there's an awful lot of life left to live, I think.
Wow. I'm sure our listeners, each one of us could think of somebody who left too soon and we weren't ready.
Yeah. And you never get over it, when particularly when my children were small, and I don't know if anybody's got children, but you tend to go out with your children to various mums groups, and I would hear people, or hear these women complaining about their mothers. Oh, my mother interferes, my mother-in-law interferes, or my mother wouldn't do this for me, or my mother fed my children the wrong food, or whatever it was. And I used to think, how lucky you are that you've got your mother. I remember I had glandular fever when my daughter was 18 months old. And, if my mother had been alive, she would have been on my doorstep. She would have been there to help me, because I was basically incapacitated. My husband was at work. Because there's nobody like your mother, is there? There's nobody that will just be there in the same way that your mother. She would have just dropped everything. And I'm determined. I'm determined that's not going to happen.
Wow. My mother left very early as well. So one evening she went to bed and she never woke up.
Wow.
So I never got over it, and I don't think I could ever, because each time I remember missing to tell her how much I love her. And I'm thinking, I was young. I was so involved with raising my 3 children, and I always loved her very, very much. But she was very very hands-on. She'll always be, and she'll come in and she'll turn the house upside down, a huge house, in one day.
Mm-hmm.
And she always got this sense of order and priorities, and I wish I could be like her. For her everything was so easy, or she made it feel that way. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking many times, I think, God, I wish I could talk to her now, because now I understand better what she was about. At the time I was just wondering, how on earth is she doing all this? And now I wish I could ask her, Mom, teach me. It's that moment is never coming back. And when she left, nobody was prepared. It was a terrible time. And this is life who is taking a toll on people giving and being a service to others. And I think for our listeners, if you are somebody who is giving and is hands-on and it's very active and doesn't take no for an answer, and you have to watch yourself and value yourself more, because this is what happened to me, Jill. Like I realized when I retired, I realized that I don't know how to say yes to myself.
That's so common, particularly for women, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so common. There's that analogy with the when you're in an aeroplane and
yes,
they say that the oxygen masks drop down, and they say put your own oxygen mask on first before you help your child or whatever. because there's no good just giving yourself and putting yourself last, because at the end of the day, you know, we are completely the rudder of our ship. And I see so many women who are in denial in all sorts of ways about their lives and what they need in terms of their physical and their emotional well-being. And in this day and age, it's quite extraordinary, really. I think, you know, I'm hoping that one of the legacies that I want to pass on to my own daughters is actually they can have their own sense of themselves and do what they want to do, and, you know, but still be feminine as well. Because I think we lost that a little bit probably over the last decade.
Yes,
and I yeah, I've you know, and I love the fact now that my daughters in their 20s are, you know, they're such complete women in their own rights. But I also love the fact that they absolutely love me. And I feel so blessed that that happens, and it's extraordinary. You know, my daughter came home for the weekend because she needed to be with me. She'd done her exams at university, and she just needed me at 21. You know, and that was just such a lovely moment for me. And we just spent the whole weekend together, doing nothing really. And I put everything aside for her this weekend because it was important that she had my attention. And I'm very happy and privileged to be able to do that. And long may it continue.
Wow, Jill. You see, in a way, each time I listen to your show, I become more, can I say this? I become more selfish. I'm thinking I have to take better care of myself. It's too much at stake. You know, I have so much unfinished business. I have a legacy to build. I have a beautiful, beautiful, amazing princess in my life. She's just 10 months old. I'm a grandmother. So you see all these things, and of course my son, my daughter, and everybody I love, all the hosts all over the world that are working. We are working together, this family of farmers all over the world. I'm thinking, no, they still need me. I can't go.
Yeah, absolutely. And because what would we do without you? People like you, and specifically you. And you're absolutely right. You know, you have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility because we've set our stall out in whatever sense it is. We've all set our intentions out. You know, I'm working with Cheryl Chapman and Marion Bevington in the Live Love Life Lounge, you know, about what is our why. And that's very much about setting your intentions out and fulfilling your dreams and finding your passion and purpose. And every woman, you know, does that, whether they're conscious of it or not. We do that all the time. But actually, it's a bit like starting off on a journey and saying, well, it's okay, I'm going from Plymouth to Edinburgh, but it's all right if I only get to Newcastle. You know, I'm not going to bother to sort my journey out. I'm only going to do it to there because I'm kind of leaving the rest of it to fate. Well, you know, can you really afford to do that? Can you? I don't think so.
Absolutely. Wow, Jill, it is my true privilege to help you broadcast your passion and make sure that our listeners become aware that the solution is available at their fingertips, and they just need to connect with you right now. Make it a priority. Say yes to yourself. And in the meantime, I will keep broadcasting your passion from both of us. Until next time, is goodbye.
Thank you.